We'll start putting the tops together. The first thing I do when I start lining things out is I take my pull tabs. This is the pattern I like the best. We sent you 3 of them. This one works a little better for me. The other ones you don't fold, so that I think the edges look a little crude. But they're inlay types, and they're kind of fun to work with, especially on ladies' boots. And I put 1/2-inch strapping tape down on each side of these. I haven't ever had any of mine break, any of my pull tabs break by doing this. Once you get it done, you don't even know it's in there. This is another thing that works good for the skiver, that Fortuna skiver. I run my pull tabs through and I skive them very thin so they fold nice and fold over the top of the boot nice. They aren't bulky. With putting the strapping tape in, you can get rid of some of the bulk and still maintain the strength. That helps. That helps. It all adds to a little bit better quality boot, finer boot. These I use a heavy-duty contact cement on, like Barge.
SL8.
XL8, yeah, I bet, yeah. In fact, this is XL8 here. I like XL8 a little better in putting them together because it dries white instead of yellow. And when you go to put your pull tabs on after the boot's done and want to glue the sides, the tabs themselves down before you sew them, if you aren't real careful, you end up smearing up the inside of the boot with Barge, and there it stands yellow because most of my lining material is an off-bone color. So I like this a little better for a few reasons. You're also going to want a chunk of iron like this here that I've got all this stuff laying in front of. See, pound on. A lot of this, like these pull tabs and that, once you get them together, you're going to want to flatten everything out before you sew it. And I just covered it with a piece of leather, and then as it gets bad, I peel that off and throw it away. But it's something that you're going to want to have around. Also, I'll give you a little tip. If you do want to do an awful lot of skiving with these round knives, see if you can find yourself a curved piece of glass, an old bubble or something, and skive on that, and you're going to find skiving much, much easier because you're skiving down away all the time. You're not gouging into the table all the time. That curved piece of glass works very well, plus you don't dull your knife constantly. Next thing we're going to do is put the top beading on. I lay my tops out like this. I just stagger them. I'll hold it up here and show you. Just like so.
All section of a windshield out of a car works good for that curved glass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get somebody to slice a chunk of it off for you.
Okay, there's 2 types. There is a side welt and there's top beading. We'll give you an address we've discovered of a place where you can get, they'll send you a sample ring of colors and you can get every color of this stuff you want. It's fairly reasonably priced. I think it runs about $1 a yard, 75 cents a yard, something like that. Much cheaper than if you want to make it. While we're on that subject, I will show you briefly how to make one as long as we're here. This is the way I used to do it. I would take and measure out my 12-inch side seams. This is some very, very soft brown garment leather. And I would glue it, and then I would take a heavy, about the same weight as number 7 stitcher cord. And I would lay down the middle of it, and then roll her over, and end up with about 3/16 side seam. Or 3/8, I'm sorry, I'm using 3/8 on it. In order to put the boots together with my type of measurements, you're going to want to use 3/8 as well. But you end up basically with the same thing. You can match odd colors that way. It's good for you to know how to do it.
Sometimes when I'm building side seams, I happen to have heavier leather and I don't have any light stuff that comes close to the color. I just skive each side of the strip and then leave the leather thick in the middle and bend it over instead of putting a string in, and that seems to work pretty good too.
Get the bump in the middle the same way. Yeah. Your top scalp. Your top beading is pinked so that you can bend it. The side beading is not. The side welting is not. Forgot what I was talking about. Okay, you're going to need 2 pieces per top, per side, I mean. You want to come down. I'm going to grab some white here so that you can get a good idea of what I'm doing. Okay. Come down just like this and end it about 3/4 of an inch below your bottom of your scallop, like so. In fact, it probably wouldn't even hurt to put white on the top of these so you can get a pretty good idea how to lay them out. Okay, we're going to need 8 pieces the same length. And getting back to large again, this is another reason I like to use the XL8, is simply the fact that when you're working with the lighter color leathers again, you end up with white. You don't end up with a yellow color. And when we get done with this particular part of it, you'll understand that even more, because this is a little messy. Okay. I think the last was Texas leather trim, right? Yeah, Texas leather trim. And they are super people to do business with. I found them very cordial, which is a very rare item in this business. Okay, our pull tabs are ready to put together. I'm going to pound them together while they're ready to go here. And it's just a question of fold to the center. You're cutting it in half. This is another place where you can use up some of your questionable leather. Belly leather is a good place to use it up because you're backing it with strapping tape anyway. So you're giving it the strength. You're taking the stretch away from it. Okay, there's one. This would be also the time that if you were going to be doing any inlaying, this would be where you'd be doing it, because you're not putting the back on yet. So if you want to do any inlaying, now's the time you want to do it before you put your lining on. If you're working with a taller top, or if you want to put the heel slide in, you do it now before you put this on the outside. Set it in, sew it in place, then assemble the top.
Also, money pockets or gun pockets.
Yeah, money pockets, gun pockets, change pockets, key pockets. I really haven't had too much of a call for inlay. It's not a big thing up in this area. I do I do get quite a bit of call for a money pocket or something of that nature, or a knife pocket. I charge extra for it. It's extra work. One more. It's also the time where you'd want to lay out your pull holes. You have to remember, if you want to put pull holes in, that the pattern that you're going to design has to be designed to accommodate the pull holes. Also, you're going to want to double this area up in here. You're going to want to lay another piece of leather in here. So you've got 3 layers of leather. I run it all the way across.
You might tell them what a pull hole is.
The circular hole right up in this area here that they put on some boots instead of pull tabs. Just eliminate these. The new boots coming in now are coming in with both pull holes and pull tabs. Okay, we cut off the excess tape and you've got your pull tabs ready to go. I also skive the ends of these down so that when I put them in the boot that they're laying nice and flat. Alright, we got 4 of them ready to go. Now we'll put this top beading on. Again, I use the contact cement, the heavier duty contact cement. I cement one side of them until I get down to the end, and then I cement both sides. I cement both sides of both ends, but not the middle. And I'll show you why here in a minute. You can use your tops for a glue board. It's all going to be covered up anyway. We're going to overlap these, make a joint right at the deepest, the V in the scallop. And you want it to stick, so consequently that's why you glue both ends of it, because unless you keep track of which one goes over the top of which. I've found that old gum rubber soles, I save a bunch of them. That's what I do most of my cleaning up afterwards with, cleaning up my cement on the edges of it. And gum rubber also works pretty good to clean the marking off that you've marked them with to do your stitch patterns with. It's kind of fun to experiment with the different colors, and it's nice to have different side seam colors and top welting colors to do it with. It isn't that expensive to where if you get into it strong enough you're going to want to have different colors of it anyway. Anything you want to throw in while I'm standing here humming?
I can't think of a thing. I've been trying. Oh, I did on the pull tabs. I tried some. I bought some 1 1/4" strapping tape and just run it down the middle. And the glue didn't like to stick to it that well, and they kept unfolding on me. So that's something you might want to just pass up rather than try.
Yeah, when you use this 1/2 inch with this pattern we've sent you, you end up with enough leather on each side of it to where leather is sticking to leather. In fact, I have sent some pull tabs out with no stitching in them. I do normally run a row of stitching down and back on them just to make sure. But I have done some ornamental work and sent them out without stitching on them. And they've been out for almost a year now, and I see the boots on a regular basis for heels and so forth. They're doing fine. Okay, now we do the top, and I usually put quite a bit down where they're going to double over so I catch it all. When we start this assembly, you're going to understand why we have as many different machines as we have. Just for sewing the counters alone, I've discovered that it's just better to set up a machine for it and leave it alone, because you moisten the counter, but you're sewing through terribly heavy leather, but yet you want to do it with a moderately fine thread. So I've discovered that I set up this one particular machine and leave it alone. I use it for, oh, I sew the side beading on and this side welting on and this type of thing. Other than that, I don't use it for anything else. It just got to be too big of a hassle converting it back and forth to the right kind of needle to sew through them. I found a leather point narrow wedge needle does about the best job for me. You can sew these completely together on your patching machine, on a shoe patching machine. I've done it. The patterns are a little bit on the touchy side, but it can be done. It can be done. In fact, I've sewn one together completely on a home treadle machine.
I've used a zigzag home machine, it was a good heavy-duty home machine, and zigzagged the pattern on a pair. That worked out fine.
Yeah, we all don't start with the equipment that I've got. This is an accumulation over the years. We all start in the same position that many of you are going to be starting in, and that's with relatively nothing. I would assume most of you are in some type of shoe-orientated business. Shoe repairmen are a natural for this. They've got a third of the equipment already. And I am a shoe repairman, was a shoe repairman. It's a natural transgression. Okay, we'll start putting her together here. I'll put one on and show you what I'm doing. And this is also why they're pinked, so that you can get a nice, even curve to it, like so. Guess I didn't have to do that. Okay. The other one goes right up over the top, and you just kind of make an X at the bottom. I've done them both ways. I have done them this way, and I've done them where I've come down and just notched it and folded it and went back up. With these particular patterns, this works better. There's one.
On that welt, you can just slit that with a knife and cut those pinks in there so it'll bend around if you're making it out of leather. It doesn't have to be this pre-made stuff.
Yeah, you can use a big pair of pinking shears and do her. I've even done it, just cut some relief V's in it around where it forms. I've even taken just a knife and just taken and cut V's in just where I need it and got by. You'll also learn to appreciate the magazine trick where you glue on a magazine, because at least then you're starting with fresh surface all the time. We put this color sheet down here so you might get a better idea of what we were doing, and already I've got it pretty smeared up. One more.
Oh, on the skiving, Tandy sells a little deal that you just use injector razor blades with that I used before I got my skiver. And that's, if you got a good supply of razor blades, it works better than a knife for me, because I wasn't too swift at a knife. So you might try that if you want to.
Okay, we'll put the linings on now. Show you what we got here. Whoop, we can't do that, I almost forgot a step. Okay, now you have to take and skive this down. Otherwise you're going to have a bump showing through on the outside. It's no big trick other than the fact that you don't want to cut through the outside, obviously. And you don't want to cut up too high, about like that. You want to make sure that you don't end up with any stray things sticking to the inside of it, because once you get it all sewed together, it's a poor time to find out you've got a lump in the middle of it. Now we'll take our linings and tops and stick them together here. This I just used plain rubber cement on because it's going to be held together with stitching. If you do have somebody come in and say, I want a plain top boot, use a heavy contact cement on it. It helps. This rubber cement, I think, does let go after a while. It would make for a better job if you used a heavier duty cement on something that you're not going to do any sewing on. And we just put it all over. We used to, when we were cutting them out by hand like you were doing, we would take and glue our outside top shafting. We'd just roll out the top lining material. We'd lay our top pieces out on it, and we'd put cement on them, and wherever you pick this up, you'd have an outline for a top, so you'd smear that. Then you'd lay these over on the lining, just turn it over, go like that, and take a straight edge ruler and trim it out in a big square, and trim your scallop and everything afterwards. That works pretty good. It's also a little faster when you're cutting out by hand, because you don't have to cut these top patterns out. You don't have to be as careful cutting the top lining pattern out. I work relatively quick at this, because if you don't, by the time you get to the lining or the last piece, the first piece is dry, and you got to start all over again. You obviously want the smooth side of your lining towards your leg. You can put the slide in on these 12 inches if you like. I did for a long time until I decided that it was not necessary on better leather, and I haven't done it for probably about a year now, except on taller boots, and I haven't had a bit of trouble with it. You also will want to put a stiffener in taller boots. When you get done here, I'll show you. You're going to want to stiffen this area right in here, down. Right about where it wrinkles around your ankles the most. That's where you're going to want to stiffen it. That's just a matter of cutting another piece of leather and laying it in there just like you would if you were going to cut pole holes or something. Also, when you design your stitch patterns, you're going to want to try and orientate them to help avoid the sagging of a boot if you can. I don't think stitch patterns are nearly as important as they used to be, but it's also something that's become a custom with Western boots. So you people just expect that that's what you have to do. I give 3 rows of stitching with my basic price. If they want more stitching on it, I charge $10 a row. You still have the old timers coming in saying they want 8, 9 rows of stitching. It's their money. See how neat that is? I got a clean place to glue every time I turn a page.
Want to watch it. On some magazines, though, you'll get the ink to come off on you, especially after you hit it with the glue, and that's not too much fun.
Yeah, the glossier magazines are the ones I use. So yeah, that was a good thing to throw in. I remember trying to clean up a pair of boots. Okay, we're just about ready to start putting together. They dry pretty quick. When I put the tops on, I'll take the lining and I'll fold it to a self like this, not sticky sides out. When I fold it this way, then I'm only going to fight with half of it when I put it down here. You drop it down just below your beading on the top. Line everything else up.
It won't be that easy the first time.
Yes. Yes, that's true. And then just lightly tap it down. That little trick of folding the lining over works pretty slick, though. That'll save you some time. It's another reason why I like to use rubber cement. It's forgiving. If you make a mistake, you can peel it up and do it over. Just fold her back to back. This again isn't that critical. If you're off a little bit, by a little bit I mean a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch on it, don't worry about it. That's going to get all squared up when we put the side seams on her. You just want to make sure you don't have it folded over or any bubbles in the middle. Same with the back. Like that, see? There we go. Now's the time where you check your heel measurements again, and you make sure of what you want that heel measurement to be. We told you when we were explaining the patterns to you that the back was bigger than the front down here. We also told you that the measurement, in fact here it is right here, that these measurements on the bottom were half of the heel measurement. It is a total heel measurement, but the back of the bottom is always going to be larger than the back of the front. This 6 3/4 and 6 1/8 totals up to your 12 7/8 heel measurement. This is very critical. This is very critical in the fit of the boot. We took these in a little bit because I wanted a little bit tighter fit. It was the type of leather I was working with. If you're working with a light, stretchy leather, you want to take them in a little bit more. I never take them in any more than a ½ inch. ½ inch is quite a bit. A quarter, 3/8 of an inch is pretty much standard. Okay, so you want to check your heel measurements again at this time to make sure you've got your heel measurements right. If you end up shorting, if you end up cutting this down, you can't find a combination in all those patterns we sent you, mixing and matching to come up with the kind of heel measurements you want, or the smallest isn't small enough, and you trim down. I try and trim down equally to where I keep the same taper. If you've got to take a ½ inch off, take a quarter off the front, quarter off the back. Keep them symmetric if you can.
Be an 1/8 inch off each side.
1/8 inch off each side. And once you've cut these little notches out, before you do the cutting, if you take and just drop a ruler across them, we're also going to send you one of these silver layout pins, and draw across like this, and then trim it off. You've got your ½ inch marker again where you're going to put your seams. Just do that automatically. I also draw one right down the center as well as I'm doing it, so that if I do any other changing, I know where center is on them at all times. Before I start modifying the top, before I cut anything, from this point on, I draw the center down, and I draw the heel measurement, that ½ inch heel measurement on them, because that gives me some reference point to go back to. This silver layout pen washes off. It's a kind of a water-soluble silver grease. It's also the same material that this silver marking cloth that we use to lay out the pattern with is made of. We'll also send you a piece of that.
Well, this would also be the time if they wanted to put a collar on it, that they might put their collar
Yep.
on.
If they wanted to do like an extra scallop on the outside of it, a decorative scallop. You've seen so many of these boot companies come out and go down here with an extra layer of fancy leather on top. Now is when you want to do it. Any and all additions that you want to put to it, this is where you want to do her. But see, I've found my center, and I've also marked it this way. That way, if I start changing top diameter, bottom diameter, or whatever, I've got everything marked to where I know where I'm at. Once you start laying out your pattern on them, you're not going to know where you're at unless you've got it clearly marked. I think we're about ready to lay out our stitch pattern. So we'll get everything lined up for that and show you that.